Commander stood on the bridge of the massive starship called Eternal Hunger. His 4 eyes scanned the view screen showing a blue and green planet floating in the darkness of space. This was Earth, the world discovered by the Empire. It looked peaceful and beautiful, but knew that looks could be deceiving. The Empire controlled 847 star systems across the galaxy. They had conquered many worlds and made contact with hundreds of species. Some were friendly. Others had to be subdued by force. The key to their success was simple: never underestimate a new planet. Always test it first. Turned to his chief scientist, Doctor, who stood nearby studying his data tablet. The doctor was thin even by standards, with pale skin and nervous movements. He had spent his entire career studying alien creatures from countless worlds. "What have you learned about this planet?" asked. His voice was deep and commanding, the voice of someone who expected immediate answers. Doctor tapped his tablet several times before responding. "The planet is remarkable, Commander. Our scans show incredible biological diversity. Millions of species live there. The dominant intelligent species calls themselves humans. They are primitive but advancing quickly. They have not yet achieved faster-than-light travel." "What about the predators?" asked. This was the question that mattered most. Doctor pulled up images on the main screen. A massive orange and black striped cat appeared first. "This is what they call a tiger. It weighs up to 300 kilograms. It has powerful jaws and sharp claws. Very dangerous." More images followed. A huge brown bear standing on 2 legs. A shark with rows of razor teeth swimming through dark water. An enormous reptile with armored skin floating in a river. "These are impressive creatures," admitted, "but we have faced worse. The war beasts of Sector 9 were twice this size." "Indeed, Commander," Doctor agreed. "But you know our protocol. We do not test the strongest creatures. We test the weakest predators. This tells us the baseline danger level of the entire ecosystem." This was the way. When they discovered a new world with predators, they captured the smallest, weakest meat-eating creature they could find. They brought it aboard their ship and tested it in combat scenarios. If they could easily handle the weakest predator, then the planet was safe to approach. If the weakest creature proved difficult or dangerous, then the world was marked as high risk. The logic was simple. On a dangerous planet, even the weak creatures would be formidable. On a safe planet, the weak creatures would be harmless. "So what is Earth's weakest predator?" asked. Doctor worked his tablet again. The screen changed to show a small black and white animal. It was digging in dirt with its front claws. It looked almost cute, with a pointed snout and small rounded ears. "This creature is called a honey badger," Doctor explained. "It weighs only 11 kilograms. That is roughly 25 pounds in human measurements. It has no venom, no ranged attacks, no exceptional size or armor. Our scans show it eats insects, roots, and small rodents." Studied the image carefully. The creature looked harmless. It was smaller than many of the pets his officers kept in their quarters. "This is truly a predator. It looks like it could barely harm a juvenile." "It is classified as a carnivore by human scientists," Doctor confirmed. "Though it eats many types of food. Compared to the tigers, bears, and sharks, it is clearly the weakest predatory creature on Earth." "Perfect," said. "This is our test subject. If we cannot handle this small creature, we cannot handle Earth. Prepare a capture team." Doctor nodded and began sending orders through his tablet. Within minutes, a specialized capture squad assembled in the launch bay. They were led by Specialist, a decorated field operative with blue scales and a muscular build, had captured creatures from 60 different worlds. He had faced poisonous serpents, armored beasts, and even semi-intelligent pack hunters. He had never failed a mission. The team boarded a small stealth craft and descended toward Earth. They had been watching the planet for weeks and had identified several honey badgers in a region called The craft landed in a remote area at night when no humans were nearby. led his three-member team across the dry landscape. They moved silently, using night vision to navigate. After 20 minutes of searching, they found their target. The honey badger was digging near a large mound, completely unaware of the aliens watching it. "Target acquired," whispered into his communicator. "It appears docile. This will be simple." Up on the eternal hunger, and Doctor watched the live feed from his helmet camera. The honey badger continued digging, its attention focused entirely on finding food. "Activate the stasis field," commanded. One of his team members raised a device that hummed with energy. A blue beam shot out and surrounded the honey badger. The creature froze instantly, suspended in a field of blue light. It could not move, could not react. It was completely helpless. "Specimen secured," reported. "I have captured more dangerous creatures from nursery planets. This Earth world may be safer than we thought." The team loaded the suspended honey badger into a containment pod and returned to their craft. Within the hour, they were back on the eternal hunger. The pod was transferred to the Xenobiology Laboratory, a large facility filled with equipment for studying alien life forms. Doctor immediately began running tests while the honey badger remained frozen in stasis. He measured its vital signs, bone density, muscle composition, and brain activity. Everything seemed ordinary. Nothing about this creature suggested it was dangerous. "Bite force is moderate," Doctor noted to his assistant, a young researcher named Plex. "Claw length is minimal. Speed appears average for a creature this size. Intelligence tests show basic problem-solving ability, nothing exceptional." The honey badger was placed in a reinforced containment cell. The cell was 4 meters by 4 meters, with smooth metal walls and a transparent energy barrier for a door. It was designed to hold creatures 10 times the honey badger's size. The cell had cameras on all sides and equipment to introduce various stimuli for behavioral testing. "Everything is ready," Doctor announced to Commander. "We will begin testing tomorrow morning. I expect this will be one of our quickest assessments. The creature shows no signs of aggression or unusual capabilities." Nodded his approval. "Good. Once we confirm the weakness of their baseline predator, we can proceed with first contact protocols. Earth will become the 848th system in our empire." That night, most of the crew slept peacefully. Doctor reviewed his notes and prepared his testing procedures. Commander planned the speech he would give to the humans when they made first contact. But in a small quarters on the lower deck, 2 humans sat awake. Their names were and. They had been abducted from Earth 3 months earlier for what they called cultural sampling. The aliens wanted to learn human languages and customs before making official contact. Was a teacher from Seoul who had been taken while hiking in the mountains. Was an engineer who had disappeared from her apartment inn. Both had been treated reasonably well, but they missed their home and families desperately. They had access to the ship's internal communications and had watched the capture mission. When they saw what creature they had chosen, both had the same reaction, shock followed by dark amusement. "They captured a honey badger," said in Korean, knowing they could not understand their language. "Of all the animals on Earth, they chose that one." Laughed quietly. "Do you think we should warn them?" Considered this. Would they listen? They seem very confident in their methods. "True," agreed. "And honestly, after being held prisoner for 3 months, I am curious to see what happens." They both smiled, sharing an unspoken understanding. Tomorrow would be very interesting indeed. The morning came quickly aboard the Eternal Hunger. The ship operated on a standard cycle regardless of where it traveled through space. Lights brightened gradually to simulate dawn. The crew woke and went about their duties. In the Xenobiology Laboratory, Doctor arrived early with nervous excitement. Today would validate his assessment. Today would prove that Earth was safe for the Empire to approach. He entered the observation theater, a room with comfortable seats arranged in rows facing a large window. Beyond that window was the containment cell holding the honey badger. The creature was still frozen in blue stasis light, exactly as it had been placed the night before. It had not moved. It had not even blinked. The stasis field prevented all biological functions except the most basic life support. Doctor checked his equipment one final time. Everything was ready. Cameras recorded from multiple angles. Sensors measured every possible data point. His assistant Plex stood nearby, data tablet in hand, ready to take notes. More scientists filed into the observation theater. This was an important moment for the xenobiology department. Everyone wanted to witness the baseline test. By the time Commander arrived and took his seat in the command chair at the back of the room, 23 scientists had gathered. "Begin when ready, Doctor," said. His voice carried authority and impatience. He had planets to conquer and systems to manage. This test was just one more administrative task in his long career. Doctor stood at the control panel. "Today we assess specimen HB001. This creature represents the lower tier of Earth's predatory species. We will observe its behavior when released from stasis and document its responses to standard stimuli." He paused for dramatic effect, then pressed the release button. The blue stasis field flickered and disappeared. The honey badger remained still for a moment, as if unsure it was free. Then its head moved slightly. Its small black eyes opened fully and surveyed its surroundings. Complete silence filled the observation theater. Every scientist watched intently, waiting for the creature to do something. The honey badger sat motionless except for its eyes, which moved slowly from one wall to another, studying the cell. "It appears disoriented," Plex whispered to Doctor. "This is normal for creatures emerging from stasis. Perhaps we should." The honey badger launched itself at the energy barrier. The impact was tremendous. The entire containment cell shook. The transparent barrier flickered and sparked. Warning alarms immediately began blaring throughout the laboratory. Red lights flashed on Doctor's control panel. "What is happening?" Doctor shouted over the noise. He frantically checked his screens. "Barrier integrity at 85%. That is a 15% drop from one impact." The scientists in the observation theater jumped to their feet. Some moved closer to the window for a better look. Others backed away instinctively. Commander stood from his command chair, his four eyes wide with surprise. The honey badger attacked the barrier again and again. It threw its entire body against the energy field with brutal force. Its claws raked across the surface, leaving trails of disrupted energy. The creature made no sound except for the heavy thud of its body and the scraping of its claws. No growls, no roars, just relentless, silent attack. "This is impossible," Doctor said, his voice rising in panic. "That barrier can hold a war beast. Those creatures weigh 400 kilograms and have armored hides." "Increase power to the containment field," Commander ordered. His voice was calm, but there was an edge of concern. Plex worked the controls, diverting more energy to the barrier. The blue field brightened and, for a moment, it seemed to have worked. The honey badger's next impact had less visible effect. But the creature did not stop. It adjusted its angle of attack slightly and continued. It hit the same spot on the barrier over and over. The energy field was designed to distribute impacts across its entire surface, but the honey badger had somehow found a weak point and was exploiting it. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then 30. The honey badger never stopped attacking. It never slowed down. It never paused to rest or assess the situation. It simply attacked with mechanical precision and endless energy. The scientists were no longer talking. They stared in horror at the small creature that refused to acknowledge the laws of physics or biology. How could something so small generate so much force? How could it sustain this effort without exhausting itself? At the 40-minute mark, cracks began appearing in the energy barrier. They looked like fractures in glass, spreading slowly from the point where the honey badger concentrated its attacks. "Evacuate the laboratory," Doctor screamed. "The containment is failing." Scientists scrambled for the exits. Some moved quickly and orderly. Others pushed and shoved in panic. Plex dropped his tablet in the rush and had to crawl back to retrieve it. Commander remained in his command chair, watching the scene with growing disbelief. He had seen the might of his empire crush entire civilizations. He had witnessed weapons that could destroy moons. And now, he was watching a creature that weighed 11 kilograms defeat his military-grade containment system through nothing but persistence and rage. "Someone explain this to me," demanded. "How is this possible?" At that moment, two more figures entered the observation theater, and had been summoned by Doctor earlier. As the ship's human experts, they were supposed to provide cultural context for the testing. They had arrived just as the evacuation began, but neither moved toward the exits. Instead, they walked calmly to where Commander sat and watched the honey badger continue its assault on the barrier. "Commander," said respectfully, "may we offer our perspective on this situation?" Looked at the two humans. He had mostly ignored them during their months aboard his ship. They were primitives, barely worth his attention. But right now, they seemed calm while his trained scientists panicked. That was interesting. "Speak," commanded. Gestured toward the containment cell. "That creature is called a honey badger. On Earth, it is famous. Very famous. It appears in our media, our jokes, our stories." "Famous for what?" asked. "Its weakness, its domesticity." Shook his head slowly. "No, Commander, it is famous because it does not care." "Does not care," repeated. "Explain." "The honey badger does not care about pain," said. "It does not care about danger. It does not care about odds or survival or anything else. It simply does what it wants to do. When it decides to attack, nothing stops it." As if to demonstrate her point, the honey badger struck the barrier again. More cracks spread across the energy field. The warning alarms grew louder and more urgent. "This is absurd," said. "All creatures have survival instincts. All creatures can be deterred by sufficient pain or fear." "Not the honey badger," replied. "There are videos on Earth, recordings of honey badgers fighting lions, fighting leopards, fighting hyenas. The honey badger never wins based on size or strength. It wins because it never stops fighting. It wins because its opponents eventually give up, but the honey badger never gives up." Commander wanted to argue, but at that moment the energy barrier shattered completely. The honey badger tumbled through the opening and landed on the laboratory floor. It rolled once, stood up, shook itself off, and immediately began looking for the next thing to attack. Every remaining scientist in the observation theater rushed for the exits. Plex dropped his tablet again. Doctor ran faster than he had moved in decades. Within seconds, only Commander and the two humans remained in the observation theater, watching through the window as the honey badger began exploring the laboratory with focused intensity. "You knew this would happen," said. "It was not a question." And exchanged glances. "We suspected," admitted. "The honey badger has a reputation on Earth. It is not the strongest animal or the fastest but it might be the most dangerous simply because it refuses to stop." The honey badger found a table covered with scientific instruments. It jumped onto the table and began destroying everything within reach. Glass shattered, metal bent. Expensive equipment was torn apart with efficient brutality. "How do we stop it?" asked. The two humans looked at each other again. Finally spoke. "That, Commander, is the question your entire empire is about to learn the answer to." Below them, the honey badger finished destroying the table and moved toward the laboratory door. It began scratching at the metal, testing for weakness. The door was thick and reinforced, designed to contain hazardous materials and dangerous specimens. The honey badger did not care. It had found its next target, and it would not stop until that target was destroyed. The situation aboard the Eternal Hunger continued to deteriorate. By hour 12 of the containment breach, the Honey Badger had established control over 3 full deck levels. Security teams refused to enter those areas. The creature moved freely, destroying whatever caught its interest and attacking anyone foolish enough to get close. Commander sat in his command chair on the bridge, reviewing damage reports. They made for grim reading. Power systems compromised on Deck 4. Life support damaged on Deck 7. Navigation sensors offline due to severed cables. The medical bay had treated 73 injured crew members, with more arriving every hour. And still the creature continued. It did not eat. It did not sleep. It simply moved through the ship like a natural disaster, unstoppable and relentless. "How long can this continue?" asked Doctor, who stood nearby looking exhausted and defeated. "I do not know, Commander," the doctor admitted. "By all biological metrics, the creature should have exhausted itself hours ago. Its size and mass cannot support this level of activity for so long without rest or fuel, yet it persists." Security Chief approached the command chair. His armor was dented and scratched from an earlier encounter with the Honey Badger. "Commander, I must report that morale is collapsing. The crew no longer trusts our ability to protect them. Some are requesting we abandon ship." "Abandon ship?" His 4 eyes widened in shock. "We are the flagship of the Empire. We do not abandon ship because of one small animal." "With respect, Commander," said carefully, "this is not a normal animal. My security forces have faced it multiple times. Each time, it defeats us. My officers are trained warriors, but they cannot fight something that does not respond to pain or fear. How do you combat an enemy that simply does not care if it gets hurt?" Had no answer. He turned to look at Anne, who stood quietly near the back of the bridge. They had remained there for hours, watching the situation unfold. The commander had kept them close, hoping they might provide some useful insight. So far, they had only confirmed what everyone was learning. The Honey Badger was unlike anything the Empire had ever encountered. "You too," said, gesturing them forward. "You knew this would happen. You knew your planet's creature would do this." Stepped forward, his expression carefully neutral. "We suspected it might be difficult for you. The Honey Badger's reputation on Earth is well established, but we did not know for certain how it would react to your ship's environment." "Difficult?" His voice rose. "Difficult is an understatement. This creature has injured dozens of my crew, damaged critical systems, and brought my entire ship to a state of crisis. And you knew. You stood there and watched us bring this thing aboard, and you said nothing. Moved to stand beside. Would you have listened if we had warned you? You were so certain of your methods, so confident that your technology and your empire could handle anything a primitive world might produce." Wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. If the humans had warned him about the Honey Badger before the capture, he would have dismissed their concerns. He would have assumed they were trying to protect their planet through deception. He would have proceeded with the mission regardless. "What do you suggest now?" asked, his voice tired. This was perhaps the first time in his long military career that he had asked primitives for advice. Before either human could answer, a new alarm blared across the bridge. Chief Engineer Mox rushed to a console and studied the readings. His face went pale, which was saying something for a whose skin was already. "Commander," Mox said urgently, "the creature has reached the auxiliary reactor. If it damages the containment housing, we could have a cascade failure." "Seal the reactor level," ordered immediately. "The seals are not responding," Mox reported, working his controls frantically. "The Honey Badger must have damaged the control lines when it passed through that section earlier." Stood from his command chair. This was it. This was the crisis point. If the Honey Badger breached the reactor containment, the explosion would cripple the ship. They might not survive. At minimum, they would be stranded in this star system, helpless. "Send every available security team," commanded. "Evacuate all personnel from the surrounding sections. I want." An explosion shook the entire ship. Red lights flashed across every console. The main view screen flickered and went dark before emergency systems restored it. Mox checked his readings and looked up with horror in his eyes. "Auxiliary reactor is offline. Secondary systems are automatically compensating, but we have lost 30% of our total power generation." Silence filled the bridge. Every officer stared at their commander, waiting for orders. Could see the fear in their eyes. These were trained military personnel, veterans of campaigns across the galaxy, and they were afraid of a creature that weighed 11 kilograms. Returned to his command chair and sat heavily. He had made many difficult decisions in his career. He had ordered orbital bombardments. He had commanded troops in ground invasions. He had condemned entire civilizations to subjugation. But those had all been decisions made from strength, from a position of power and control. Now, for the first time, was making a decision from weakness. "Bring the humans to me," he said quietly. "Just the humans." The bridge cleared until only Commander and remained. The commander looked at them for a long moment, studying their faces. They looked back at him without fear or triumph, just patience. "You knew," said again. "From the moment we captured the honey badger, you knew it would come to this." "We suspected," corrected gently. "The honey badger is famous on Earth, but we have never seen one tested against alien technology. We did not know for certain what would happen." "But you hoped," said. "You hoped this creature would be our downfall." Nodded slowly. "Yes, we hoped. You abducted us from our home, Commander. You have held us prisoner for 3 months. You were planning to approach Earth and add our world to your empire, whether we wanted it or not. So yes, when we saw you had captured a honey badger, we hoped it would teach you a lesson about our world." "And what lesson is that?" asked. "That Earth is more dangerous than you imagine," said. "Not because we have powerful weapons or advanced technology, but because our world is harsh. Our planet produced predators that never give up, never surrender, never stop fighting. The honey badger is not even close to the most dangerous thing on Earth. It is just the smallest predator you chose to test." Absorbed this information. He thought about the tigers they had seen in their scans, the bears, the sharks, the massive crocodiles. If the weakest predator could do this much damage to his ship, what could the strongest ones do? More importantly, what about the humans themselves? They were the dominant intelligent species on Earth. They had survived and thrived on a planet that produced creatures like the honey badger. What did that say about human resilience, human determination, human danger? "You are bargaining," said, understanding suddenly. "This entire situation has been leading to this moment. You want something from me." "We want our freedom," said simply. "We want you to return us to Earth with the honey badger, and we want you to leave our planet alone." "And if I refuse?" asked. Gestured toward the bridge windows beyond which the ship stretched away into darkness. "Then the honey badger continues doing what it does. Eventually, it will damage something critical enough that your ship will be crippled. Maybe the main reactor, maybe the life support, maybe the faster-than-light drive. The honey badger does not need to understand what it is destroying. It just destroys." "We could kill it," said, though his voice lacked conviction. "We have weapons powerful enough. We could vent the entire ship into space if necessary." "You could try," agreed. "But how many of your crew would die in the process? And what guarantee do you have that it would work? You have already tried your strongest weapons. You have already tried vacuum exposure. Nothing has stopped it." Knew they were right. He could feel his control of the situation slipping away. The Empire did not negotiate with primitives. The Empire did not retreat from inferior species. But the Empire also did not allow its flagship to be destroyed by a single small mammal. Pride or survival, that was the choice. "If I agree to your terms," said slowly, "what assurance do I have that Earth will not become a threat to the Empire in the future? You are a primitive species now, but you are advancing rapidly. In a few hundred years, you might develop faster than light travel. You might spread across the galaxy. And based on what I have seen, you might be more dangerous than we anticipated." And looked at each other. They had not expected this question, but they understood its importance. Finally spoke. "We cannot promise what humanity will do in the future, but we can tell you this. Earth does not want to conquer the galaxy. We have enough trouble managing our own planet. If you leave us alone, we will leave you alone. We are not a threat to your empire unless you make us one." Another explosion, smaller this time, shook the ship. Somewhere in the distance, alarms continued to sound. The honey badger was still loose, still destroying, still proving its point with every passing moment. Commander made his decision. Commander stood and walked to the main view screen. Earth hung in the darkness of space, blue and green and beautiful. It looked so peaceful from this distance, so harmless, but now understood that appearances could be very deceiving. "I agree to your terms," he said without turning around. "You will be returned to Earth. The honey badger will be returned with you, and the Empire will not approach your world. Not now, not for the foreseeable future." Behind him and remained silent. They had expected more argument, more resistance. The fact that it agreed so quickly told them just how desperate the situation had become. "Turn to face them. But understand this. I will report everything I have seen to the Galactic Council. I will tell them about your planet's creatures. I will tell them about the honey badger and what it did to my ship. Every species in the Empire will know that Earth is dangerous." "That is acceptable," said. "In fact, that is exactly what we hoped for. Let the galaxy know that Earth is not worth the trouble." Activated his communicator. "Security Chief, report to the bridge immediately. Chief Engineer Mox, prepare a containment unit with maximum shielding. We are going to attempt to recapture the creature." "Commander's voice came through the speaker. "We have tried multiple times to recapture it. All attempts have failed." "This time will be different," said. "This time, the creature will be motivated to cooperate." He looked at the two humans. "You will help us. You will convince the honey badger to return to containment voluntarily." Shook his head. "Commander, you misunderstand. We cannot control the honey badger. No one can. It is not a trained animal. It is a wild predator that does exactly what it wants." "Then how do you propose we get it off my ship?" demanded. Thought for a moment. "We do not capture it. We transport it. We build a containment unit that the honey badger enters on its own, and then we seal it quickly. We use food as bait." "What kind of food?" asked. "Meat," said. "Fresh meat. Honey badgers eat many things, but they prefer protein. If you can provide raw meat, we might be able to lure it into a container." Within the hour, a specialized containment unit was constructed in the main cargo bay. It was a large reinforced cage with thick metal bars and a heavy door that could slam shut in a fraction of a second. Inside the cage, Chief Engineer Mox placed several kilograms of fresh meat from the ship's food storage. The honey badger was tracked to Deck 9 and positioned themselves near the cargo bay entrance, along with a security team that maintained a very safe distance. A trail of meat was laid from the honey badger's last known position to the cargo bay, designed to lead the creature toward the trap. "Are you certain this will work?" Security Chief asked nervously. He held a remote control that would close the cage door. "No," admitted, "but it is better than any other plan you have tried." They waited. Minutes passed slowly. Then they heard it, the distinctive sound of the honey badger's claws clicking on the metal floor. The creature appeared at the end of the corridor, following the scent of meat. It moved cautiously, stopping occasionally to investigate the pieces that had been left along the trail. The honey badger ate each piece quickly and efficiently, then moved to the next. It showed no signs of suspicion or hesitation. To the creature, this was simply food that had been conveniently provided. It did not question why or how. The honey badger reached the cargo bay and spotted the large amount of meat inside the cage. Without hesitation, it walked through the open door and began eating. Everyone watching held their breath. His hand hovered over the button that would close the door. "Wait," whispered, "let it get fully inside." The honey badger moved deeper into the cage, focused entirely on the food. When it was clearly past the threshold, nodded, pressed the button. The heavy door slammed shut with a metallic clang that echoed through the cargo bay. The honey badger looked up from its meal. It stared at the closed door for a moment, then returned to eating. It did not attack the cage. It did not try to escape. It simply enjoyed the food it had found. "It is contained," said with disbelief. "After 18 hours of chaos, we contained it with meat." "Because it chose to be contained," explained. "If the honey badger decides it wants to leave, it will leave. But right now, it has food and no reason to go anywhere else." The containment cage was carefully transported to a shuttle, and were escorted aboard as well, along with a pilot and 2 security officers who volunteered for the assignment. The shuttle would take them to Earth's surface and release them far from any human population centers. Before the shuttle departed, Commander came to see them off. He stood at the shuttle bay entrance, looking at the 2 humans who had brought his mighty warship to its knees with nothing but knowledge and patience. "I underestimated your world," said. It was as close to an apology as a commander would give. "I assumed that primitive meant weak. I was wrong." "Many people make that mistake," said. "They look at Earth and see a beautiful planet with simple creatures. They do not see the million years of evolution that created predators like the honey badger. They do not understand that survival on Earth requires adaptations that might seem impossible to species from gentler worlds." "Tell me honestly," said. "If we had chosen a different creature for testing, would the result have been different? If we had somehow captured one of your tigers or bears?" Smiled slightly. "Commander, the honey badger is not the most dangerous predator on Earth. It is not the strongest or the fastest or the largest. It is just the most persistent. If you had chosen something else, you might have faced something even worse, or you might have faced something easier to handle. We will never know." "And what about humans?" asked. "You are the dominant species on a world that produces creatures like this. What does that make you?" And exchanged glances. Neither answered directly. They did not need to. The question hung in the air, and Commander could draw his own conclusions. The shuttle launched from the Eternal Hunger and descended toward Earth. They landed in a remote area outside Seoul, far from the city but close enough that, and could find their way home. The security officers opened the cage door carefully, then retreated quickly to the shuttle. The honey badger emerged from the cage slowly. It looked around at the familiar landscape of Earth, the trees, the soil, the smells of home. It sniffed the air once, completely ignoring the humans and aliens watching it. Then, without any acknowledgement of what it had done or where it had been, the honey badger wandered off toward a nearby forest. Within minutes, it had disappeared into the underbrush, already searching for food, already surviving, already not caring about anything except the next meal and the next burrow and the next small challenge to overcome. And watched it go. They stood together in the field, breathing Earth's air and feeling genuine ground beneath their feet for the first time in 3 months. "Do you think they will really leave Earth alone?" asked. "I think they will tell everyone in the galaxy about what happened here," replied. "About how their mighty warship was brought to crisis by a creature that weighs 11 kilograms, and I think no one will want to risk discovering what else Earth might have." The shuttle lifted off behind them, heading back to the Eternal Hunger, and began walking toward the city. They had families to reunite with, lives to rebuild, and an incredible story that no one would probably believe. Far above them, the Eternal Hunger broke orbit and engaged its faster-than-light drive. The massive warship accelerated away from Earth's star system, putting as much distance as possible between itself and the dangerous blue planet. On the bridge, Commander prepared his report to the Galactic Council. He wrote carefully, choosing each word with precision. This report would be read by the leaders of every major species in the Empire. It would determine Earth's fate for generations to come. In the section marked Threat Assessment, typed a single word in red priority text, Extreme. He added a detailed explanation. He described the honey badger in clinical terms, its size, its capabilities, its complete disregard for self-preservation. He documented the damage to his ship, the injuries to his crew, the systems that had been compromised. He made it clear that this was not speculation or opinion. This was observed fact, supported by data and video evidence. Then he added a final note, a personal observation that deviated from standard military reporting format. The creature we tested was, by Earth standards, among the weakest of its predatory species. The dominant intelligent species on this planet survived and thrived in an ecosystem that produced such creatures. Extreme caution is advised for any future contact. This world may appear primitive, but it is far more dangerous than our initial assessments indicated. Recommendation: avoid all contact until we better understand what other threats Earth might pose. The report was transmitted to the Galactic Council within the hour. It spread through the communication networks of the Empire like wildfire. Every species, every commander, every scout ship received the updated threat assessment for Earth. The response was unanimous. Earth was placed on the Do Not Engage list. The star system's coordinates were classified. First contact protocols were suspended indefinitely. Some species on the Council argued that Earth should be monitored closely in case humans developed faster-than-light travel, but they were outvoted. The consensus was clear: leave Earth alone. It was not worth the risk. On Earth, life continued normally. Most humans had no idea that alien ships had been watching their planet. They did not know that 2 of their fellow humans had been abducted and had saved their world through knowledge and patience. They certainly did not know that a single honey badger had become Earth's unwitting defender. A honey badger dug through a termite mound. It had been doing this for millions of years, long before humans built cities or ships or anything else. It would continue doing this long after all the current concerns of civilizations had faded into history. The honey badger did not know it had faced down an interstellar empire. It did not know it had saved humanity from potential conquest. It did not care about any of that. It just dug through the termite mound, ate what it found, and prepared to face whatever challenge came next with the same relentless determination it applied to everything. Because that was what honey badgers did. They survived, they persisted, they endured. And they never, ever cared about the odds.